what I'd like for you folks to understand with that is that my pretrial sentencing, and let that one sink in for just a minute, my pretrial sentencing precluded me from possessing weapons. And an Isabella County Sheriff's deputy thinks that a 9mm magazine for a handgun is a weapon. Not the handgun itself, but the 9mm magazine. I could actually do more damage with this engineer scale. So this is what we have, and since Deputy Steiner, the idiot Deputy Steiner that is gainfully employed still after stealing the contents of my family's home in 2010, could have, arbitrarily stopped me for having magazines in my car and revoked my bond and thrown me back in jail. And because he thinks that magazines are weapons, and nobody at the Sheriff's Department's going to correct him. I mean, why would they? So it's from this perspective that I'm sharing this information. Now, this last incident where my house in Blanchard was stolen, this is my wife and I's marital property. We bought it in 2004. We're 11 years at that property. And the bank initiates a foreclosure with the wrong redemption period of 6 months. I notify the Sheriff's Department that the sheriff's sale was fraudulent. It had already happened November 13th or 14th, 2014. And now the bank's trying to evict at the 6-month mark, the wrong redemption period. And Eric Janes, this clown, tells me that I don't have standing in court. Tells my wife that she doesn't have standing in court. Now, if you don't understand standing in court, you really need to, because standing is what allows you to address the court and provide and prepare and present your defense. So when you're denied standing in court, essentially what that means is it doesn't matter what you say, the court will do what it wants, as if you weren't there. Okay? How much of a defense can you provide or present if you're not there? Well, you can't. And being denied standing in court by a judge is saying you're not even there. And this is what the alleged Michigan militia people don't understand, or didn't want to understand, or willfully were ignorant of. There's only a couple different ways to look at it. Either the militia groups here in Michigan are part of the state and they're acting on behalf of the state, trying to preserve the public trust, or they're totally ignorant, or they want to be totally ignorant, or whatever. Take your pick. But you don't go to a guy's property wanting to see the loan documents, spelled L-O-N-E, looking for constitutional violations by the bank, because who cares? The bank isn't required to conform to the Constitution. Am I the only one that understands this here in Michigan? The bank can't violate your constitutional rights, constitutionally secured rights, because they don't care. So when John Madden and Tony What's-His-Face came over to my house, they wanted to see the loan documents to look for constitutional violations so that they could give the green light to the militia to assist me or not. And the constitutional violations weren't in the loan documents. Constitutional violations were in the court proceedings, where my wife and I were collectively denied standing as Eric Janes, the judge, the alleged judge, argued the position of the bank, argued the standing of the defendants, while the bank's lawyer sat there and did nothing. See, Eric Janes wasn't just being the judge that day. He was being a lawyer for the prosecution, a lawyer for the plaintiff. And the bank didn't argue standing at all, our standing. The bank didn't make a single argument. The bank's lawyer sat there with a fat grin on his face, while Eric Janes argued our standing, actually denied our standing, ruled against us, and gave an order of possession of the bank. That's the intentional deprivation of due process under color of law. Denying standing to defendants, you might as well just execute sentence without a hearing, if that's the way you're going to do it. So this is where we're at, folks, and we need to get in our courthouses. We need to start publicizing this information. We need to educate our militia. We need to get rid of those who think that it's even possible to find constitutional violations in loan documents. See, the militia is not supposed to go out and decide, civil issues, no more than the police are. And to think that they are is completely ludicrous. What we need to do is make sure that people have the ability to get into courts to resolve our issues. The courts are supposed to be there as a non-biased entity to settle disputes, regardless of who the plaintiffs and the defendants are. So if I have an issue with my bank, and the bank wants to do something to me in court, there has to be a process. There has to be due process. And as a defendant, I have to be allowed standing. Now, this is happening more and more, and my case just is an example, okay? There's nothing special about my case. This is happening all over the country. All over the country, okay? And the reason Paul Chamberlains across the country are creating administrative orders to preclude cell phones from the courthouse is because we're catching these criminals commit their crimes, and they don't like that. So they're going to create criminal policies to prevent us from creating criminal evidence against them. Duh. So these are the things we need to do. These are the things we need to work on. And before I wrap up with this one, I just wanted to say thank you to all my friends and people out there that are supporting. Still looking for a place to live. And I wanted to leave you folks with this. I have friends that are keeping track of people that have been in this fight for decades, that have passed away fighting state corruption. And this is obviously part of the state's strategy to outlast us, to beat us up, to run us out of money. I said earlier that, I don't even know why they let us play in their sandbox, but that's not entirely true either. They let us play in their sandbox, and it takes years and years and years. Our financial resources are depleted, even if we don't get a lawyer. So that's why we're allowed to even play in the courts. I mean, everything is pre-decided. I can show you case after case right here in Isabella County where everything was decided before any hearings took place. And they allow us to participate because it costs us money to do so. And we're all not millionaires, right? We can't afford to do this every single day, day in and day out. But they're sitting there doing this every single day, day in and day out, and they've learned the procedure. Okay, they've learned if they run us out of money, if they beat us over the head enough, we'll just go away. We got to stop going away, folks. It's time to get right back in their face and salvage what's left and get rid of the rest. There isn't much to salvage, let me tell you. I've got a lot of friends across the country working with judicial reform. Let me tell you, folks, you can't resuscitate dead, right? Our judicial system is pretty much dead. If you find a judge that still operates under the Constitution, report that, because he's going to need our support. He or she's going to need our support. Anyways, peace and God bless. This is part 2 of a 2-part series, December 4th, 2015. Till next time.